I am here with John Ramdeen and Robin Black, and if this was Sesame Street, today's show would be brought to you by the letters D, H, E, and A, which is something you are not supposed to be taking if you are an athlete being overseen by USADA. We have to discuss Lyoto Machida, who is throwing our production...
Machida.
Yes, very original. Our production staff just thrown into a tailspin ahead of our preview show with Lyoto Machida off of the card. So what happened was last week he was subjected to an out-of-competition test. And when they come, you have to list anything that you've been taking. And he wrote down this substance and they were like, dude, you can't be taking this. And he's off the card as a result of it. They actually have not got the results of the test, but that's kind of immaterial. He is admitted to the use of this, and it was from a supplement, 7 Keto, which contains DHEA, and I instantly searched this, okay? And the first thing, you type this in, 7 Keto, the bottle comes up, DHEA is written on the damn bottle. Yeah. So there's no, I didn't know this was in there. I know Lyoto has said that it was just banned this year. No, it was banned in 2012 by USADA. I think the guy's out of excuses here. I commend the guy for at least writing it down, and I mean, just pleading ignorance is probably your only defense.
I don't know about that one because Crow Cop was like, they came in to test me. He's like, they're coming to test me.
I did it.
So I got a sore shoulder and I was using growth hormone. And they're like, okay, well now you're banned. And then they tested him after. They're like, actually, if you didn't say it, sometimes, hey man, you got lipstick on your collar and you realize it's there and your wife says something and you're like, no, a girl at work, it was her birthday. And you start making up crazy stuff. These are not, none of these are independent. We don't need to discuss them on a case-by-case basis, although, sure, that is how we're supposed to do it. But what we need to do is look at the big picture. Yeah. We're going to say this a lot of times over the next 4 months. It's going to keep happening and keep happening and keep happening. It's going to be different excuses every time. We come from a time where most people use drugs. Somewhere between half and 75% use drugs.
Or more.
Or more. Often because everybody else was doing it. That's not an excuse, but it was the truth at the time. Now we're in a time where it's real stringent testing. And not only is it hard to clear yourself of this stuff, but guys' bodies start to become there's certain kinds of reliance. DHEA stimulates the production of testosterone. If your testosterone stopped producing on a regular amount because you're a guy in his 30s who used some drugs, not saying he did, but these are the kinds of things that happen, you got to use them. So this is going to happen a lot. Each independent excuse, listen to it if you want to, or look at it in the big thing. These guys did what they used to have to do. Pretty soon they're going to have to, and then now they have to be clean, and there is a period in between. This was predicted. Some guys will be retiring. Some guys will be changing weight classes. And lots of guys will be getting caught.
The question is, why is this still happening right now, considering everybody knew that the testing was happening? They knew that the UFC was coming at them full force. You would expect that every single fighter that has competed at the highest level, Lyoto Machida has been a champion. This is one guy in particular because you're still in, everybody knows your name, you're on the big pay-per-views and you're on television. When it comes to this, how are these guys still doing that? Why are they not paying attention across the board?
I look at this one, though, a little different in the sense that this wasn't like this guy was just caught, right? It's like, oh, they got me, or it's less sneaky. I mean, in the sense that it wasn't as though he was saying this after the test came back that, oh, I didn't know, and that. It's like he labeled it, and I buy that this guy probably didn't know this was banned.
But if they come to test you and you're like, oh, damn it, they're going to catch me on something.
Exactly, write it down.
Better to admit it in advance than get caught later.
Perhaps they may be more lenient in his punishment because he was so forthcoming about this. But, I mean, yes, you can say that, hey, you have a management team around you. You need to know these things. I'm of the belief it is your body. You are the athlete. This is your business. You make your living off of your body. You need to be aware of these things.
Very true.
And if that requires you to sit down on the USADA site and go line by line, what can be in my body, what cannot? This is your profession. This is everything for you.
True.
You need to be aware of it.
I understand, but there are a lot of athletes out there. It's like, well, this is a complicated game. If I sit in front of a computer looking at all these things that I don't know.
So take nothing.
Sure, I understand. I understand. But you're talking about that we were in an era. Some of these guys are still part of that era. It's like, okay, I can't be doing those things because I have to, develop the skills. And the landscape is changing. You have to be on board instead of trying to figure things out. You're supposed to trust your team.
Who got pulled from the biggest fight of his life? He was fighting Matt Matt Brown? Wasn't there a Matt Brown fight and somebody got pulled? It was a younger guy on his way up. I mean, now we're talking about so many that have happened. This is our job, and we're forgetting who some of these guys were. They're like, well, I didn't take anything. Look at my chest. I'm not that big. It was in a supplement. Are we at the third of these or the fourth or the fifth?
Yeah.
Just don't take any of that stuff. For the most part, almost everybody understands that most of that crap doesn't do anything anyways. It's mostly a high marketing budget and a high packaging budget and almost no research and development. I think we all know this stuff is crap, right? So they're taking it. If this is 100 and everybody's clean, and this is 0 where it was pride and everybody took a lot of drugs here, you're not going to take any here. You don't just stop taking drugs. Your body, your endocrine system. You know, if you go from super Vitor to dad bod Vitor, what do you think happened there? How do you think your body responded to that? That's not a natural thing. You can't just suddenly go, I must take to, and Dan Henderson, we love you, Dan Henderson, but you shouldn't be so judgmental. You were taking the TRT. Yes, that was allowed at the time. This is sort of almost allowed. It used to be allowed because nobody tested. It's gray areas. It's all gray areas.
So with that said, what is the punishment for Lyoto Machida? I mean, he could be facing a 2-year suspension here. Will he get a lenient punishment in the fact that this was a guy that at least was not caught in the traditional sense? He essentially outed himself here when the inspectors came, but we don't even know the test results yet. They might come back and just show all of this. They may not. And I don't know what the answer is.
What did Krokop get when his test results came back and he got nothing? He got a real thing. Also, you know, whatever Yoel Romero got, it was like, okay, look, we get it. You didn't know what was in these. This one's more now. It's only been a few weeks since you saw another guy taking some weird thing with giant horse pellets that does nothing except for whatever.
This is the Machida case is the opposite of a tainted supplement. This was a supplement that did exactly as it's advertised to do. You took a supplement that flat out stated right on the label what it does.
Although, to be honest, DHEA, most people don't actually think it does a lot. This is, again, a gray area. We're still in the learning phase. There'll be people that will send me tweets saying, oh, no, DHEA is a it stimulates the production of testosterone. But go in and really look at the studies. A lot of this stuff does crap, which is why they took steroids, because that stuff works. This stuff is very tribulus and all of these things. But go to Iceland. You're not even allowed to take a simple amino acid, glutamine, which we can take here pre-workout. You can't even take that in Iceland. But that doesn't do anything. A lot of this stuff does nothing. Should Lyoto Machida get dinged? He knew what he was doing, whether he says he doesn't or he does. But ultimately, this is a product of a time that these guys had very little choice. Going to the gym, 10 guys on the pro team. 8 of them are on juice. They beat you up every day. The one other guy who's not, that's the only guy you can really handle. What are you going to do? Quit your job or adapt? You know, and now they can't do it anymore. So there's the period of change where half these guys' bodies don't work. Half of them don't produce the testosterone that they used to. Some of them will need to retire. Other ones will get through this without getting caught. And other ones trying to adapt will get caught.
What do you think is going to happen when you look at, we're just going to use the middleweight division as an example, Anderson Silva, Dan Henderson, now Lyoto Machida, Vitor Belfort, guys that are at least in their mid to late 30s, or into their 40s, do you expect to see across the board a whole bunch of guys bail on the sport because they can't compete in today's MMA world?
I mean, yeah, Frank Mir just got dinged for something. Yeah, I mean, guys, there are people that start doing high-level athletics at 35 and never took drugs. They may be able to do it, but it's the hard drugs that some of them took in their 20s. And this isn't, we're not just saying this up. Talk to 100 fighters, talk to 100 high-level coaches. Most of them didn't like the environment that they were in. Most of them are much happier now. They don't want to damage their bodies. They don't want to damage their ability to have children when they're 35 or any of these things. They don't want to do it. But they were left with very little choice when you looked around and it's, yes, he's on it. Yeah. Yes, he's on it. Probably on it. Yes, he's on it.
Jim encourages it.
Yeah, exactly. You're training with that one guy, you're tired and you're in the ice bath, and the guy who's 40 is actually, you know, oh, hey, let's do another round. I mean, what choice did these guys have? This cannot all be documented because it is now a bygone era. But we're in that period in between a bygone era and a clean era. And we knew coming into it that there would be changing weight classes, guys retiring, and these kind of things happening. And here it is.
Let's also make mention of the fact that Dan Henderson finds out about this just days out from the fight in Tampa. I mean, Dan Henderson, he's got a limited amount of fights left in his career. You could say that, who knows if he was going to fight beyond this fight with Lyoto Machida. He goes through a whole camp here. The fight gets pulled at the last minute here. I mean, if you're Dan Henderson, this is a tough one for him, because I don't know necessarily to go through this whole camp, you don't get to the fight at the end of it. That's tough to take for any particular fighter, but for Dan Henderson, I mean, he has to be looking at it like he's in the twilight stage of his career at this point. I mean, I don't anticipate him retiring, but you can certainly...
He could. I mean, reality...
You're sensing that from his tone of late, that you're starting to see that I think he is looking
He's aware of it. I mean, you just have to look at his age. I mean, Dan Henderson's been around this game for so long. He understands these fights are very important. If I want to leave, have the last number of years in my career, my contract, try to make as much money as humanly possible against the biggest names possible. And I think there's still space for Dan Henderson to do that. The UFC says they're going to try to get him a fight as quickly as possible. And Robin and I were talking about a fight with Nate Marquardt, a rematch with Anderson Silva. I think there are a few fights for Dan Henderson that people are going to still be interested in, but it's limited.
Other old guys from a previous era that have survived through to this era. That's the logical stuff. And it's just one of those things. If we pretend that the old Dark Age era, which is now gone, and they're happy it's gone, if we pretend it didn't exist, a certain conversations happens with each one of these. If we accept that it did exist, then take these conversations for what they are. It's a challenging time of change for athletes that are happy to leave a dirty era.
Okay, that wraps it up for us. Be sure to tune in on Saturday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, a 1-hour preview show looking at the revamped Fox card from Tampa, Florida, still headlined by Rashad Evans and Glover Teixeira, as well a rematch involving Rose Namajunas and Tisha Torres. Tune in Saturday night.